I'm going to call this meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for everybody who has joined us in person tonight. And thank you to those who are tuning in for the webcast. Do we have any agenda changes tonight?
We do. I have the addition of L, approval of per pupil health services for non-resident students. And I also did provide each board member with an updated personnel report highlighting anything that has changed since Friday.
Thank you, Michelle. Do we have any public comments tonight related to the agenda? Didn't see that we did. Okay, so I'm going to move into communications. Okay, moving right along, it's my pleasure to introduce the Watertown High School Student Council reports. You're comfortable wherever?
Yeah, go.
Okay.
Right here? Right here? All right. Good evening. I'm Adelaide Weir. I'm the president of Student Council.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Luciano Guarino, and I am the treasurer for Student Council.
And first, I'd just like to thank you for letting us update you on all the good things that Student Council and the high school has been up to thus far this year. So starting off at the beginning of the year, we had the homecoming dance. So we had to meet in August to plan for the pep rally and all the things that went on during Spirit Week. We had a fantastic turnout. So we had 608 students attend the dance, which is the most we've ever had at the dance.
So the amount of money made from the dance in total was $9,120.10, and our profit was about approximately $6,000 ish.
Yeah. So thank you, Luciano. So because of the extra 100, 200 people that we had at this dance, it was up to us to find more chaperones and hire another police officer for the night. And the dance went great. There was no problems, fights, or anything. So it was great turnout all around.
Yes. And then now I'm going to be talking about the food drive. So we had a class competition. So basically every single class, freshman through senior, was competing against a can drive. And the class that, had the most cans donated won $1,000, and the sophomores won that donation. We had in total 657 cans, non-perishable food donated, and we donated all that to Salvation Army. Thank you.
And we hope that will continue next year when we're not there either. And then in late November, early December, the student council representatives of each class and ourselves participated in the Angel Tree program, and each representative went above and beyond in finding those gifts and for those people. So it was great. And that has the thing that we've kind of always done on student council every November and December. Just all around in school. So for sports and art, a number of students have already committed to play college sports and have participated in the scholastic art competition, which kind of speaks to the success of the sport and art departments right now. Future projects, right now we're working on the outdoor picnic tables that we'll be buying and putting where the tree was next to the pool area for the entire school use, student use, and teachers to use as well for outdoor classrooms, we hope. We also have the science fair coming up in March, as well as the talent show that will be put on by PBIS and NHS, and as well as the musical, which is the Addams Family. Some feedback that we've gotten from students so far is that all the students have been enjoying the new Promethean boards that have replaced the smart boards. We really like the change of technology that keeps all the students updated, and great participation in our classes too. So we really like that. We're also really enjoying the PBIS incentives and rewards to good behavior that Ms. Mizercola and Mr. Fairchild have been working really hard on this year. As well as the weight room after school. It's pretty sure it's open most days, and every day after school, I see tons of students going in there. So it's really great to have that open after school. So we really like that. And the last thing I want to talk about is the parking lot paint in the high school area. So right next to the walker doors, we really like the new parking spots. It's really great for the safety and environment of the students, but we would really like it to continue underneath the bridge as well. So that's all we have. Anything else that you want?
No, thank you. Thank you guys so much for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Fantastic update. Thank you for taking the time to come up and share with us tonight. Appreciate it. Moving on to the FAF committee report, Mr. Susan.
Thank you, Jason. So we reviewed the 23-24 administrative budget calendar, which is 26 plus dates that Josh has summarized everyone. Put them out there. We got a turf replacement update. And then we also reviewed the 2022 fiscal year stress review. Our score did go down from last year, so that's good. And then Josh has some more stuff that he can report on, so not necessarily thunder about the tax cap formula. And Brian updated us on facilities.
Fantastic. Thank you. Superintendent of Schools report, Mr. Roger Allen.
Okay. Thank you, by the way. Hey, first of all, you do have a vacancy on the board. You have been getting the information on the options that you have. The waivers, which I sent to you, that is 100% going to go. I got to call it the waivers are still there. The APPR, there will be no change. It's expected. And the second Court of Appeals, what I told you about, where the 8th is the last day of 21 services, you are in perfect shape because you go to the end of the year anyway, whenever they turn. So even anyway, when they pass it, which I think they will be doing, at least the legislature person I talked to said they're planning on passing it. It has minimal effect, and Shannon explained that to me very well about how that works here. So you're in good shape. There's no problem. And I just wanted to thank Michelle, Stacy, Tina, and Josh. They kept me out of trouble so far.
Good. Thank you for the report. Assistant Superintendent for Instruction report, Mrs. Stacy Peter-Covers.
Thank you. The North Country Prenatal Perinatal Council has received a Family Opportunity Center grant that is going to be located in and in partnership with the Watertown City School District. So I'll be working with Brian and Jeff in particular to house this over at Massey. This grant over the next 3 years will provide nutritional literacy and parenting support, as well as other trainings and programs available for families to help optimize their circumstances and work to ensure that their children are both school ready and supported in their other needs. This primarily focuses on the birth to age 5 range. So you'll see some programs supporting and addressing components around that. This grant does dovetail with our community schools approach, and it will work collaboratively with all of our systems and structures that are already in place to support students and their families as they approach school age. I've met with all of the K-4 buildings on mid-year data. The average growth for our students at this point in the year is about 6 months of growth within 5 months' time in the area of reading, and about 5 months growth in the same time frame for math. So about typically what you would expect to see in a year's time. Stretch growth targets for our students in order to close gaps were discussed, as well as strategies for planning instruction during intervention time that will address students' specific needs. I will meet with Wiley next week as well. I've also been meeting with all of the K-6 buildings by grade level in order to discuss writing instructional techniques, science and phonics instruction, and also the shift to computer-based testing that is coming for our students, not only in ELA and math, but also the NISA slot for our English language learners will be happening starting next year for those particular students. This Thursday, I'm meeting with 712 principals to discuss a vaping education program that they're possibly interested in using with students who have been referred for vaping. This has been used in other districts and was shared by one of our assistant principals as a possible technique for addressing those behaviors. Right after the break, after our first board meeting, I had worked with SUNY Oswego to do some practice interviews with administrative candidates who are beginning their internships. I did go to Albany to speak to the Board of Regents about our participation in the MTSS program grant with Schenectady, Staten Island, and Peekskill. Ready, Set, Go nights. This is just a quick PSA. Those will be forthcoming at our K-4 buildings. These are our informational nights getting ready for kindergarten registration. These will be held in late April and early May this year. And people can check the website for additional information as well as Parent Square, and we'll get a news release out at that point as well. This year I've been working, I should say this week, I've been working with Lisa Blank on preparing what to do for another DODEA grant submission. This one to be focused on math. If our Military Connect numbers support this, we're hoping to apply for high school, Case, and Wiley. And Lisa and I are working on putting together a math steering committee for the purpose of this, composed of math team members in those 3 buildings, as well as community members and parents to support the mission from the outset, rather than waiting until the grant is either awarded or not awarded and then sharing that information with them. In addition, we submitted our impact aid application for the fiscal year 2024. I also submitted our initial submission for targeted monitoring that we are going through for titles 1, 2, 4, and ARP ESSER. Similar to an audit, the targeted monitoring asks about our management systems, our financial operations, and our programmatic aspects of each of these grants. And we have to upload all documentation associated with the questions that they ask. We'll receive some feedback in April, and then in May, we'll have a meeting with a representative from State Ed to correct anything that they determine needs anything.
Very good, thank you. Assistant Superintendent for Personnel and Student Services for Steve Lane.
Thank you. So we've been busy doing interviews, continued to do those. We actually did interviews for custodians, cleaners, aides, substitutes, English, counseling, food service, and we actually hired a psychologist for next year today. Very exciting. We're very excited to have new staff members on board. We continue to plan for next year. I attended budget meetings on January 17th and 18th with Stacy, Josh, Sue Patrick, and different administrators and directors from throughout the district. And we teased out what staffing needs we'll need for next year. So we'd like to interview early and often for those positions. On Friday, February 3rd, I attended the Jefferson Lewis School Boards Association Legislative Forum at Jefferson Lewis BOCES. We had Assembly Minority Leader Will Barkley, Senator Mark Walczyk, and representatives from Assemblyman Scott Gray's, Assemblyman Ken Blankenbush's office, and a message from Congresswoman Elise Stefanik. We talked about foundation aid, budgeting for next year, specific line items in the budget this year that the governor's budget includes. And I will keep the board updated on any further information from our politicians. And also, I'd like to recognize our school counselors. It's National School Counselors Week this week. And our board made a commitment. You made a commitment to placing counselors in each of our school buildings 4 years ago. And their dedication to our students and school community is certainly vital in the education of our students. And National School Counseling Week highlights the essential contributions of school counselors within the United States and the tremendous impact that they have in helping our students to achieve school success and plan for careers. And the theme this year is school counselors helping students dream big. And I'm proud to say that our K-12 counselors help our students to dream big and make plans to make their dreams a reality every single day. So I'd like to thank our counselors. I meet with all of them tomorrow, along with the rest of our PPS team, and we're very happy. There's going to be a new mental health and urgent care center on State Street this spring opening up. So we're having a staff member from that facility come to talk to us, and we're very excited about that. So we'll be in this room tomorrow talking, and hopefully that'll provide more support for our students and our community. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Assistant Superintendent Finance, Mr. Josh McCarthy.
So we'll just do a kind of quick run through on our tax levy limit. Trying to get a better understanding on some of this stuff. Is a very complex formula, and there's some kind of misinformation out there when you hear people talk about it. So. Okay. So just here's some definitions. Of course, our tax levy is the amount of property taxes that we're collecting from the property owners to balance the budget after we take into account state aid and all of our other revenues. The levy limit is going to be the actual large calculation that we're submitting to the state comptroller's office every year. This will be on the agenda to be voted on at the next meeting on the 28th. So it'll make it in there on time. And the tax cap is a bit of a misnomer. You hear about 2% tax cap all the time. This doesn't mean that our levy can only increase by 2%. Rather, the 2% is a portion of that. And we'll get to that. So On the left is kind of this is the whole formula, and on the right hand side where you see the numbers are numbers for calculation. You guys also have on the back side of that OSC handout, it kind of gives you the numbers that we have. So we take our prior year tax levy, which there's the 17.1 million, by our tax base growth factor. It was 0.62% last year. It was just zeros across the board, which really hurt us. And where we ended up at a 0.69% increase this year. Then we add in our pilots receivable during the prior year, so our payment in lieu of taxes from more of the big businesses around the area. And then subtracting the taxes levied for exclusions, torts and judgments. We never not had those. So the capital tax levy share is really going to be the local share of our total debt service minus our building aid is going to give us our local capital share there. And then that gives us the adjusted prior year tax levy. We then take that, and this is the part number 6, where it is our 2% tax cap, especially this year because the CPI is what, over 6%. So you have to take the lesser of either the 2% cap or the CPI times our prior year tax levy. And then we're going to subtract out the pilots we're anticipating receiving this year. And then add in any available carryover, if any, which would be basically the spread from what we actually levied versus what our levy limit was the prior year. So in this case, for this year, it was 0, and that gets us to our tax levy limit right there, 17.4 million. Now that's kind of the base calculation. The next slide covers the remainder, because that's just the portion. So we take our levy limit, which is that 17.4 from the prior year, and then our coming year exclusions, which again is going to be our local share for the capital expenses. That gets us to 17.8 and 4.17%. Those are the numbers that the resolution will be. It's essentially saying this is our calculation. This is the max we could go to. It does not stipulate what we're actually going to levy at this point in time. It's just saying, hey, comptroller, this is what we have, and putting it on file. So I'd urge you to consider the implications. Essentially what you're looking at here is money left on the table. Stemming from 18-19, of course, every year we're not hitting our max allocations. We lose that off of the taxable base every year going forward into the future. So you can see the dark line is going to be the allowable percentage of what our max levy limit would have been. The white line is what we actually levied. So you can see there in 1920, there's a huge spread. And that's $580,000 every year going forward that we're not going to get. So when we say, so when our calculation comes in at 4%, and we say we only want to do 2%, we're losing a mass amount of revenue every year going forward. So just kind of keep that in the back of our mind as we're looking at this and when we get into budget season. And then you can see 23, 24, I just plugged in 3.5%, which again is still leaving money on the table, but that's 4.17 is a huge increase. So no, anybody have any questions on any of that? But you can see how it really stacks up. When I was doing my calculations, if we took an anticipated max levy even over the next 4 years, so that'd be 10 years worth of data, then we're down $7 million, just under $7 million when you factor in the spread that we've left each year. So it adds up. Yeah. So that's kind of the calculation. Any questions on that?
If you go back to that chart. So Josh, in those years where you have, especially in 1920, but also in 18-19, that disparity, the rationale behind that was what? Just, and then maybe you weren't here then, but just board sentiment about not wanting to increase to 4.54 versus 1.97.
I believe we were trying to hold close to the 2%. Yeah,
2%.
Yep.
And clearly last year, I mean, the aberration largely because of what?
Last year,
I mean, that,
we went to our max. Oh, the bar is gonna be cumulative. So that's gonna just keep stacking. So every time that hundred and, what is it on the far left, 168,000? That's across. And so this is actually understated when you think about it, because I don't include the additional, say, look at the next year, 2.5%. Really, that should be compounding, but in this one, it's understated. I didn't compound the amount we left on the table each year. So again,
so you have a couple of things there. You had what happened in previous years that set us up for this situation. And you had last year that obviously was a deviation form, right?
Yeah, we were right at the max at 0.69%, which is going to be more palatable than a 4%er. So we hit the max there and we were just under, 1.8, 0.02% there on the other year.
Anyone else have questions for Josh? Appreciate breaking that down the way you did.
So we had SED approved our capital outlay project for Knickerbocker Playground, so that's good. We had multiple meetings for the turf replacement. Met with legal bond council architects. You have the seeker on tonight's agenda, which covers both the turf. And of course, with the turf, we have to do work inside of the school. Right now, there was some flooring in the high school that's been problematic that I know we were looking at. We have to do at least $10,000 of work in there in order to get aid on the turf itself. And then there will be the bond resolution should be coming from our bond council for the next meeting. And currently, that resolution is likely going to reflect the price tag of 1.4 million is where we're looking now. So it is increased a good chunk. But when we had the initial, we also didn't have all of the overhead with architects and legal and everything else. So when we first heard the price tag of 650, that was just straight turf, nothing else, not all of the other stuff that we have to have on top of it. There is, we're setting up the committee. And then we're going to have there will be a meeting actually the day of the next board meeting, the morning of. We have a meeting, just a small group with 2 different companies to present, and we can discuss more with them at that point in time and kind of make a decision which way we want to go. Both had good reviews from the architect and everything. So more on that at the next meeting. Capital-wise, all of our current capital projects, the main contracts have all been signed and returned to King & King. Actually, we received the first pay up today for our mechanical contract. Budget-wise, Tina mentioned that we had met with all of the buildings departments, OC's initial service requests, that was all reviewed, feedback completed, sent back, and it's up about $150,000. That does not include, we have not met with the RIC yet to discuss all of the IT stuff that is embedded in with our BOCES ISR. So that could go up depending on what they come back with. And then of course you have the calendar handout there that Ambrose mentioned. Fiscal stress monitoring, Ambrose also mentioned that. So the scores both have decreased, and then there's a copy there. And lastly, transportation wise, we are seeking a contract extension for student, which SED allows for 1 year at a time. Of course, that would have to be approved by you guys. And depending, I asked them for it by this Friday, so we can see if it falls within the parameters of what SED allows, as well as if they come back with something exorbitant, we'll just go to RFP. It gives us plenty of time to still do that and make that happen. So that's it.
Very good report. Thank you. Items for consent agenda.
Resolved that consent agenda items A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and H are hereby approved.
Can I have a motion, please? Yep. And a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Items for action.
Whereas the Board of Education of the Watertown City School District has considered the effect of the environment A proposed capital work, including but not limited to the following: renovations and improvements, including but not limited to replacement of the synthetic turf at the stadium, fencing improvements and replacements, as well as capital improvements related to interior finishes and associated accessories at the high school. Whereas the board has reviewed the scope of the project and has further received and considered the advice of its architects with respect to the potential for environmental impacts resulting from the proposed action, and whereas the board has reviewed the proposed action with respect to the type 2 criteria set forth in 6 NYCRR part 617.5. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Education as follows. Number 1, the proposed action does not exceed thresholds established under 6 NYCRR part 617 State Environmental Quality Review Act, which is a seeker. Number 2, the board hereby determines the proposed action as a type 2 action in accordance with the seeker regulations. Number 3, no further review of proposed action is required under seeker. And number 4, this resolution shall be effective immediately.
Have a motion, please.
Lori.
Ambrose. Lori and Ambrose. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Resolved that the approval of the memorandum of agreement by and between the superintendent of schools and of the Watertown City School District Board of Education and the Jefferson County Board of Elections for the budget vote school board elections on May 16, 2023 is hereby approved.
Can I have a motion, please?
Lori.
Lori in a second.
Right.
Ambrose. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Resolved that the approval of the contract for health and welfare services for the Watertown City School District students attending a non-public school in the Carthage Central School District for the school year 22-23 is hereby approved.
Can I have a motion, please?
Right.
Fred, and a second.
Lori.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Be resolved that upon the recommendation of the interim superintendent of schools, Roger Adams, the Board of Education hereby approves the following: resignations, retirements, appointments, probationary instructional, permanent, part-time, substitutes instructional, substitutes non-instructional.
Can I have a motion, please? Ambrose. And a second.
Lori.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Resolved that the Watertown City School District Board of Education hereby nominates and supports the nomination of Peter E. Monaco as a candidate for election to the Jefferson, Lewis, Hamilton, Bergmer, Oneida Board of Cooperative Educational Services.
Can I have a motion, please? And a second. Billy. Any discussion?
It's nice to have somebody who has previously served on this board. I think Mr. Monaco was on for 15 years, so it's I continue to serve.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Be it resolved that upon the recommendation of Roger Adams, interim superintendent of schools, the following tenure appointment is hereby retroactively approved. Christina Faber, elementary, effective date September 20, 2022.
Can I have a motion, please?
Lori.
And a second. Ambrose. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Be it resolved that upon the recommendation of Roger Adams, interim superintendent of schools, the following tenure appointment is hereby approved. Thomas Bedard, physical education, effective date February 21st, 2023.
Can I have a motion, please? And a second.
Right.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Resolved that upon the recommendation of Roger Adams, interim superintendent of schools, the termination of a part-time food service worker effective February 8th, 2023 is hereby approved.
Can I have a motion, please?
Ambrose.
And a second.
Lori.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
Resolved upon the recommendation of the interim superintendent of schools that the board approves of a disciplinary and last chance agreement with a non-instructional employee.
Can I have a motion?
Ambrose.
And a second.
Lori.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Resolved that a donation from Stewart Shops Watertown for ice cream and toppings applied for the entire student body at Watertown High School. The donation was made to the Watertown High PBIS for a school-wide celebration. This donation is gratefully accepted and approved and will be acknowledged in writing.
Can I have a motion, please? Go. And a second.
Lori.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
So that the proposed new courses, satire from Shakespeare to contemporary and Estonian literature for the 23-24 school year at Watertown High School is hereby approved.
Can I have a motion, please?
Ambrose.
And a second.
Fred.
Fred, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Resolved that the Board of Education of the City School District of the City of Watertown, New York, establish a rate of $379.24 per pupil for the school year 22-23 for health services provided for non-resident pupils attending non-public schools located within the City of Watertown. The following figures illustrate the determination of the above rate. Contractual $1,477.25. Salaries $112,443.54. Social Security $8,609.93. Retirement $23,533.04. Health and dental $43,798.80. Workers' compensation $907.02. Supplies, equipment, repairs $2,252.74. There's a grand total of $193,034.72. The net registration non-public schools is 504. Cost per student is $379.24.
Can I have a motion, please?
Lori.
Lori, in a second.
Ambrose.
Ambrose, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
The end of the resolution.
That is going to be the resolutions. Okay, now is our public comment period for the agenda items. Mrs. Smith, I believe you called in.
Yep.
You have the floor.
Hey. Good evening, members of the board and Mr. Adams. Thank you for accepting to be our interim superintendent. My name is Millie Smith and I am a regular at the board meetings. So you will be seeing me quite a bit. As you have learned or will be learning that there have been many changes that have come to fruition within our Watertown City School District in the last year. And most of these changes are positive and good changes. I think that we can all agree that changes are an evolving process and that long-lasting changes always take some time to implement. So we all have to be patient with one another. I have observed firsthand that the diligent work that the school board has accomplished since the beginning of the school year, despite the fact that we've had to make, or you've had to make, very difficult and challenging decisions. And that is given to the credit of the cohesiveness of this board. And I appreciate that as a community member. However, I am not just here to praise, I'm here to raise a concern. And the current concern for me is our unknown status of our superintendent. And if I would just be allowed to kind of recap the sequence of events, back on June 7th, 2002, our superintendent, Patricia Labar, decided that she was going to retire. So that obviously prompted the board to have to seek a new superintendent. In the meantime, we have been very fortunate. We had Mr. Kettrick with us from August to the end of January. And now we're fortunate enough to have you sitting in the seat. So that's a positive thing, that we're having great people occupy that seat while we find someone that's permanent for our community. So back in September, the job was posted, and it was initially posted with a salary of $160,000. My understanding is that we did not obtain enough qualified candidates at that salary. So then the job was subsequently posted with a salary of $190,000, hoping that we would attract more candidates. So during the second research, 3 qualified candidates arose. One of those who had originally been interviewed during the first round of interviews. This past January, the board notified a diversified group of stakeholders in the community, which included administration, teachers, students, and community members such as myself, and allowed them the opportunity to come on January 19th and have a stakeholder meeting with each candidate, which was an excellent idea. It was an opportunity for every community member that was interested to meet the candidate, ask questions, and inquire anything that they wanted to know about the candidate who was potentially going to be running our school district. Today, it's February 7th, and it's been just about 9 months since this whole process has started, trying to find a new superintendent. And I know that the board has prioritized finding a superintendent. However, it is very uneasy for us that at this point in time, we still remain uninformed as to the status of a new superintendent. My personal opinion, and I am well connected in the community, is that this is causing a lot of uneasiness and some ill feelings because we really don't know what's going on. And when you ask stakeholders to devote their personal time to meet a candidate, to submit written evaluations in the spirit of actively partaking in the selection process, and we still have no feedback on where we stand with this process, it's not satisfactory. In addition, on a personal level, I can only imagine how the candidates are feeling, not knowing where they are. And I'm only speaking because I don't know. Maybe you guys know where they are, but we don't know where the candidates stand in anything. Furthermore, it's a little uneasy that their school districts do not know at this point whether they're going to be losing an administrative leader. This simply is really not good optics for our district, for our community, and for our board. And that is where my concern is, because I think we've made great strides in connecting with the community and looking good. So I feel that I need to come here and express that this is not good optics at this point. However, I do understand, and I think a lot of people understand, that sometimes when we're focusing on getting the job done, we neglect to see how things look to the other people on the outside. Us sitting out here, we don't know what's going on the inside. So we understand that this is an unintentional thing. No one's sitting there saying, well, we're not going to say anything, but it's very difficult for us from the outside to try to comprehend where we're moving forward. When 3 weeks ago, we had this great opportunity to meet 3 candidates, and 3 weeks later, we're still sitting here, don't have a candidate. And potentially we're hoping that at the following meeting, which won't be until February 28th or 27th, maybe at that meeting. So everybody's still kind of thinking, okay, where are we with all of this? So the last thing I'd like to say is that I think all of us cumulatively have an invested interest in bringing the best candidate forward. And I think it would behoove the board to provide the community with some formal update. Where are we in the process? Are we working with somebody? I understand that details cannot be delivered, but to say something, here is where we're at, would be very, very soothing to inquiring minds. And I think that if we can come together to solidify and bring the new superintendent as soon as possible, obviously that's going to benefit all of us. But I just wanted to share with you that it's uneasy when the communication is not there. So I appreciate your hard work. I appreciate that you're working diligently. Please don't think that anybody thinks you're not doing your job. It's just uneasy that 9 months into this process, we still don't have a permanent leader. Thank you.
Thank you for the comments. Good points. Anybody else tonight? Yeah.
Yeah, I put my name over there. I don't have anything.
I didn't see it.
It's okay.
Introduce yourself and
Okay.
you can speak.
All right. So my name is Madeline McGuire. For those who don't know me, actually I had Mr. Sobey as an art teacher way back in the day. So 2 years ago, yeah. My favorite class, Mr. Sobey. So I'm a 2007 graduate of Watertown High School, and I'm a local community resident here. I was born and raised in Watertown. I actually work in the community as an agent with New York Life and a registered rep with Nye Life Securities, which is essentially a big fancy word for financial advising. But I'm actually here tonight on behalf of an initiative from my company, New York Life, to help local schools become more capable of helping children cope with the death of a parent or loved one. February is actually Insure Your Love Month, which is, and it's a awareness month for the important work that we do. But the program is called the Grief Sensitive School Initiative. It involves free resources for educators and a $500 grant to each school in the district to help our schools advance its efforts to support students dealing with grief. To give some background a little bit on New York Life, we are the largest corporate champion of programs to help grieving children. Since 2008, we have committed more than $60 million in support of this cause. What we've learned through our work is that losing a loved one is an incredibly difficult experience for children, and it's more common than most people think. 1 in 14 children will experience the death of a parent or sibling by age of 18. And as children spend most of their weekday hours in school, educators have an important role to play in children's grief journey. However, even though 87% of teachers have a grieving student in their classroom at any given time, the research we have conducted with the American Federation of Teachers showed that just 15% of school teachers have received any bereavement training, despite that 91% of teachers wanted training. As you may have observed in our own school community, especially of recent with what happened with Sandy Creek and down in Syracuse, without sufficient support, a child's unresolved grief can lead to social, emotional, and behavioral issues, as well as poor performance in school. So putting the proper support in place is critical. To help the broader school community better support students dealing with the death of a loved one, my company, New York Life, has partnered with the National Center for School Crisis and Bereavement and leading K-12 professional organizations to create the Coalition to Support Grieving Students. The coalition is a unique collaboration among the nation's leading educational professional organizations, representing classroom teachers, school administrators, school mental health care providers. The coalition focuses on developing and delivering free, best-in-class grief support resources to educators through a special website, grievingstudents.org. The website contains 6 sections with more than 20 modules to help all members of the school community support their bereaved students through different circumstances. Through the program, trained New York Life ambassadors such as myself connect with schools and their local communities to raise educators' awareness of grief's prevalence and impact among school-age children, and direct educators to critical resources, including the Coalition to Support Grieving Students in its website. Schools that agree to commit to better support their grieving students are given the Grief Sensitive School designation and receive a $500 grant from the New York Life to help them build a more robust culture of grief support and resiliency at their school. To date, over 3,000 schools have partnered with us and have been designated grief sensitive schools. This is an area that my family and I have personally dealt with, which is why I wanted to become an ambassador for this program. My brother-in-law, Nate, passed away unexpectedly 2 years ago on Valentine's Day of natural causes. He left behind 4 young children that were ages 4, twin 6-year-olds, and my 17-year-old niece. And my sister, who also happens to be a teacher out in Las Vegas and was also a 1999 graduate of Watertown High School. I can tell you from personal experience, even though Nate passed away almost 2 years ago, the grief that his children are experiencing still continues to this day. Most recently, over Christmas, my nieces and nephews started to ask questions about Nate's death and what were to happen to them if my sister also were to pass away. These are questions that no children should have to worry about, which is why getting programs such as the Grief Sensitive School Initiative are so important. As mentioned, unfortunately, my family is not unique, and on any given day, our educators are dealing with children who could be experiencing their own grief at any given time. Knowing how to recognize this grief is vital for our educators to help children better manage their grief journey. I'd like to attend your next staff meeting or appropriate school gathering in person or virtually to introduce this informational free resource. I would also like to share materials with you and give you tools to develop a plan for your school to better support grieving students. My presentation will only take about 20 minutes, and after our meeting, Watertown City School will be eligible to receive a $500 grant from New York Life to help the schools and districts become grief sensitive schools. In addition to the 20-minute presentation, I can also share a 45-minute taped webinar supporting students coping with grief and loss, hosted by Dr. David Schoenfield, a developmental behavioral pediatrician and professor of clinical pediatrics at Keck School of Medicine in the University of Southern California and Children's Hospital, Los Angeles. I'm looking forward to partnering with you and introducing you to New York Life and these important resources.
Thank you very much. Make sure that one of us gets an email address or contact prior to leaving. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Is there, excuse me, anyone else? No? I'd like to announce some upcoming dates. Monday, February 13th, the National Honor Society ceremony induction will be at 7 p.m. Watertown High School. Wednesday, February 15th, policy committee meeting, 5 p.m. Monday, February 20th, President's Day, and all buildings are closed as a result. And then from Monday, February 20th to Friday, February 24th, there is no school due to winter recess. Finally, Tuesday, February 28th, Board of Education meeting, 6 p.m. and the Watertown High School auditorium. See you then. We're on the room, starting with Ambrose.
Nothing tonight. Thanks.
Okay. Mr. Sobey.
No, thank you.
Thank you for coming in
Thank
and
you,
sharing your personal story. I definitely gonna get your email. Millie, thank you for coming in with the positive thoughts. I'm glad you brought that up. Obviously, I can't speak to what you're saying, but I can tell you that myself, I can't even go grocery shopping right now. Yes, my Facebook is, so I completely understand. I completely thank you for acknowledging how hard we've been working on it. So it's been our baby for the last 9 months. So I do appreciate the positive thoughts. So understanding.
Mr. Richardson. Yeah, I have some updates to share with everyone. Dan Menser from Wiley writes in, our Wiley students are working on the Fill Our Hearts with Kindness challenge. Students and staff can recognize others who did kind acts by writing the act on a conversation heart, which will then be stapled onto a bulletin board in the main office. If the Wiley students can fill the board by the end of the month, they will earn ice cream treats courtesy of the Wiley PTO in early March for every student. Starbuck, Mr. Lennox writes, Starbuck would like to welcome Taylor Moore as a student teacher. She will be working in 3rd grade. The RTI and AIS providers have worked diligently in putting together Tier 3 and Tier 2 schedules for our students for the 2nd trimester. They have worked hand in hand with our classroom teachers and Coach Jen Surratt, resulting in developing a solid intervention and overflow time block schedule. Special thank you to Sarah Hillier and Nova Schenk from Pivot for presenting at our Staff Development Day on Friday, January 27th. The presentation on social emotional learning was well received and worthwhile. It is important to note Mrs. Hillier works in our building every Monday in our classrooms. The staff and students are thankful for all she does and wish we could have her in our building more often. We also loved having Millie, her service dog, come in with Miss Shank to hang out with staff and friends during this time. She is a beautiful service dog. He goes on to write, data meetings are taking place this Wednesday with Mr. Lennox and Mrs. Surratt to go over iReady scores, placement and services as a whole for Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. district-wide grade level meetings with Mrs. Eager continue to take place this week. And our staff have valued the time spent together taking a deeper dive into data and curriculum. Thank you for allowing us the opportunity to meet with grade levels from other buildings throughout the district. And he has a couple more. Just a reminder that our Sweetheart Dance is Friday, February 10th from 5:30 to 7 in the gymnasium. Over 300 plus have RSVP'd to attend. We are looking forward to seeing our little Cyclones dance and have fun together. A special note of appreciation to Mr. Darren Burgess and a number of our Starbucks students for attending our girls varsity basketball games to support our Lady Cyclones on senior night and another league game. We Starbucks students love supporting the team and their number one coach, Mr. Gosson. Mr. Gosson is also the physical education teacher here at Starbucks. Finally, a special thank you to our students and staff for continuing to practice 3 B's, being respectful, being responsible, and being safe. Jessica Blair at Ohio shares that Ohio Elementary had a building-wide assembly on Friday, January 27th to celebrate the success of several students in classrooms. 57 students were recognized at the assembly for wonderful work, exemplifying the traits learned through the Positivity Project and demonstrating our PBIS values of being safe, respectful, and responsible. Several classrooms were also recognized for their dedication to supporting our PBIS values during specials, lunchtime, and keeping their classroom a clean, safe place for learning. Ohio students had all completed their mid-year iReady diagnostic by the end of January, and many classrooms and grade levels were celebrated at the assembly. We're demonstrating the most growth from September to January, as demonstrated through the results of the iReady diagnostic. Congratulations to all students, and thank you for your dedication and hard work. Finally, Terry Gonzalez at Sherman writes in, this week is School Counselors Week, and I'd like to recognize Brianna Marsh and the amazing support that she is at Sherman. Her support of students is greatly appreciated. We'd also like to thank our students for their patience and efforts in completing their iReady tests. Sherman would like to recognize our substitute teachers as well. We appreciate them coming in every day and doing a great job of providing a safe environment and carrying out lesson plans for our students. I'd also like to thank our teachers for their daily efforts in taking care of our students. I have notes. We did receive a 3-page anonymous letter at the district board office this week. The letter contained several good pieces of advice, much of which we will be discussing and taking under advisement. That's the good news. However, I am very much, if you haven't learned by now, a face-to-face person, as are the rest of my board members. So I would ask whomever wrote this letter to step forward so that we can have more in-depth conversations. I believe my track record speaks for itself in terms of anonymity. So, ball's in your court. This time, we are in need of an executive session for the purpose of discussing an individual's contract and an ongoing legal matter. Ambrose and Cully. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Thanks for watching and coming. Senior halls. Yep. What you say? Oh, you couldn't. Really turn it up.